Are you ready to transform your normal e-commerce business into one that experiences exponential growth year after year using online advertising? If so, this show is for you. Me and my guests will show you how you too can grow your e-commerce business to 7 or even 8 figures so you can go on more luxurious vacations, spoil yourself and your family, say yes to more opportunities, and become financially free so you never have to worry about money again. Welcome to the e-commerce performance marketing show.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Josh Marsden here, host of the Ecom Performance Marketing Show. And I have Josue Sanchez here. Now, Josue has had incredible success in e-commerce. He has exited an e-commerce company. He's sold an e-commerce company. So he has some incredible strategies that he's going to share today on the show. And also, he's going to talk about SMS marketing and the power of SMS marketing moving forward for e-commerce, because he's a big player right now in the SMS marketing world. So he's got some incredible stuff to share today. I'm very excited to have him on the show. Josue, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Josh. Thank you for having me. Super excited to dive in here.
Appreciate it, man. I appreciate the opportunity for you to be on the show. Your time's very valuable, and I'm super excited to share with the audience everything that you know about e-commerce and scaling, and even maybe exiting an e-commerce company. Before we dive into all that good stuff, can we, start by you telling the audience a bit about yourself and your backstory and how you got started?
Yeah, absolutely. So, let's see. I mean, I first heard about e-commerce when I learned about Shopify, and it was through a Facebook ad. Somebody was selling some sort of course. I can't even recall the name of the guy, but I was broke at the time, didn't have much cash flow at all, and I remember, man, like the Shopify stock being like $40, a share back in late 2016 when I first learned about e-commerce, and I wish I would have bought then, right? It's like, it was like 17% return, even with the most recent dip, so if I put in $5,000 there, it would have been, $62,000 now. Not a life-changing amount of money, right? But, still huge. But I did ended up diving into the e-commerce world more deeply in late 2018. And really it's because, I was working for an agency, they rebranded recently to Tier 11. So it's one of the fastest growing marketing agencies out there that specializes specifically in Facebook ads and Instagram ads. And as you know, Facebook and Instagram ads are huge in the e-commerce world. And so they were having tremendous success. I mean, at the time they were managing $3 million. I was part of the team a month in ad spend for clients across 50 plus industries, lots of verticals, right? And so I was seeing it firsthand, man, and it's kind of like that itch. It's hard not to want to become like a greater part of it and more directly be influenced by it, and just seeing that it's like I need to get into it myself, right? And actually be the one kind of driving process and whatnot. So I decided to take the deep dive. I mean, it's like I was making kind of like that safety net salary, right? Working remotely. And I figured, well, what is there to lose? I know how to do the ads. Let's just start something. And so I did, man. And it was, obviously from scratch, no zero brand equity, zero funding. It was just all self-funded.
Yeah. Bootstrapped. Yeah. It's incredible.
Utilizing a credit card.
The hustle was real.
But it was a thrill, man. It was a thrill. So
yeah. You got to take some risk, in life to get that result. I mean, it's all calculated risk, but you had experience obviously doing Facebook, Instagram ads with a very, very, good, successful agency. And e-commerce obviously at that time too was still fairly emerging. I mean, especially, Shopify has been a big driver of it, I guess what I'm getting at. And you saw that, you saw that opportunity, and then you took action, which is incredible. What do you feel like separates you versus maybe others out there in regards to taking action? Because it shows a lot of gumption on your part to take action, put the work in, even on top of working full time. What was it that really helped to drive you early on?
Yeah, Josh, over the years, I've really learned that being in a comfort zone is a very dangerous place to be.
Yep.
And, you know, each and every one individually, you have to dive deep in and find what are your alternative motives to wanting to make more, to be more, right? To, like, you know, money is the vehicle that allows for many things to happen, right? And like,
Yep.
for me personally, it's like, you know, I grew up in the middle class. I was like, you know, I didn't undergo necessity, so to speak, right? But it's like, you know, I was privileged in some ways, right? Like, I went to a private school and this and that, and I was, you know, that allowed me to move into the States and kind of pursue, you know, something outside of where I grew up in Puerto Rico. But just the mere fact of like being able to first like improve my family legacy, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that my children could have more than what I had, but then
Yep.
also just like bringing forth a bigger contribution to the world, right? Like
Yeah.
those for me were my motives. I'm not a selfish person in the sense that like I need more and more and more to have like a more luxurious life. Very minimalist and frugal in that sense. I mean, and part of it is because I knew times that, you know, I'd struggle to come up with $200 to pay rent in the worst time, in the worst part of town during my college years, right? So I made it across the
Happens.
pond, you know, to the state.
Yep.
Like it wasn't like a smooth sailing kind of thing. And so when you had those sort of experiences, it's like, you know, that motivates you to want to get out of that rut, right? And then
Right.
I've always believed that success is not this esoteric thing that only the few can achieve, right? And
Absolutely.
it's like it takes massive action and execution, you know, daily in order to get yourself from where you are to where you want to be.
Yeah, consistency is everything. Absolutely. I'm so glad you said that because, you know, there's lots of people probably watching this that really need to hear that because maybe they're, you know, earlier in the journey or maybe they're struggling in the journey. And, you know, it's just all about massive action, consistency, and just, you know, playing that mind game, you know, successfully day in, day out and staying on top of, you know, that mind game. So this way you can really apply yourself day in, day out. So I'm so glad you brought that up. So what are you doing currently right now in entrepreneurship?
So, you know, I've always had an entrepreneurial background. You know, and in a sense, I feel like I'm always like I'm still in that kind of position because, you know, it's a very small startup that I'm a part of right now. It's called Reply By. I'm the chief marketing officer there. You know, I've invested in the company, and so it's just been a wonderful journey. You know, we're in the forefront of what we believe is kind of like the next trend in terms of like just leveraging text messaging for the purposes of marketing. You know, SMS right now is like the most underutilized channel by business today. And in a world that 78% of consumers would wish that they would text businesses, and mobile phones are like the preferred device by over 50% for consumers to communicate, like SMS is where all the attention is. I mean, you have the big guys like already preaching it, like Gary Vee, for instance. Like if you watch his videos, he's always talking about text messaging and the power of that. And so we're in the forefront of that. You know, our mission is to be the easiest way to start a conversation and close the sale. So, you know, our solutions really enable businesses to collect payments with a simple text. It's a technology that we own, nobody else has. It has been very, very powerful. And then on top of that, managing one-to-one personalized conversations at scale as well.
That's awesome. That sounds exciting. And I see so much potential for that, both for e-commerce businesses applying that to their marketing mix and to the future of your company as well, especially with some of the developments you shared with me right before this interview, because you're going to be integrating with Shopify in the near future, it sounds like.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we have deep roots in the sports industry, sports and entertainment. It's really what our first go-to-market vertical. We've proven it, and, you know, the technology works. It unlocks purchases, you know, and, you know, that's kind of like the hardest part, right? It's like getting started. Same if you're watching this and you're trying to start an e-com business, like the hardest part is getting started, right? Like once you get started, it's just about momentum, right? It's like, just keep doing more of the right things and you're well on your path to get yourself from where you are to where you want to be, whatever that might be. And so, our next step, as a company is just really diving into the e-commerce world, because I've personally experienced it. This is kind of like the stuff that I wish I had back then.
Yep.
And so as we dive into, some of the taxes that I was able to leverage as an early adopter, we see the reason, a lot of the reason why, I first just execution, right? Getting started executing, but also the fact that I was able to really leverage the fact that I was early adopter, an early adopter using a lot of these technologies. And so we see text messaging as kind of like the next thing. And so that's where we're eager to dive into that world. And obviously, an integration with Shopify just makes all the sense in the world to handle fulfillment and order tracking and whatnot. So.
Yep. No, that's amazing, man. I wanted to ask you a second ago, and I didn't ask you this, but you said you've always been kind of an entrepreneur. You've always had an entrepreneur mindset. Where do you feel like that came from?
I think I did have a lot of like encouragement, like early on, I think that parents play a very crucial and influential role in kids. I was always like, I don't know. I had this kind of like innate talent to see needs, right? Like, for instance, I was like, based on my personality, like I was always like super organized, and I never lost my pencil. Like,
Nice.
You know what I mean? Like it was like I built that habit that my pencil was in my pocket all the time. But then I noticed that not everybody was the same, right? Like, people seem to lose their pencils, right? And so what did I do? I went to like Oriental Trading, I think it is. Like you buy like pencils by the dozen, right?
Okay.
And so I would buy all these pencils, and then when I see people like, they lose their pencils, and it's like they're asking their friends around, can I borrow a pencil? And it's like, well, I don't have a pencil you can borrow, but you can buy this for $1.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like opportunities there. It's like, here you go, give me $1. And
yeah, see, I used to do that with like
money
lunches
for a pencil because they needed it at that time.
I don't think I've said this on the show actually, but I wouldn't say that I have this entrepreneur background, and I grew up in an entrepreneur family, or even had parents that even instigated entrepreneurship in me. But I was always very like crafty and resourceful and opportunistic. Like when I was a kid, Nintendo was pretty big. This dates me a little bit, that's fine. Nintendo, the first Nintendo, was pretty big, and I didn't even have one. But what I used to do is I used to borrow Nintendo games from other kids, and then I would loan them out, get paid to other kids. I was like brokering the deals between people that wanted to like borrow other video games from other kids and making some money in the process. And this happened for like a small amount of time when I was a kid. I was probably like around the age of 9 or 10. And at one point, the teacher found out I was doing this, told my parents, and my parents were like, hey, you can't do that. I'm like, okay. But anyway, it was just a funny story I thought I'd bring up because I've never brought that up.
Nice.
So
nice.
So tell us about like your biggest e-com success to date. What has that been? And how did it all happen?
Yeah, so it was just out of just a need, right? To kind of want to dive in, right? I wasn't in a desperate position financially. I was desperate in the sense that I wanted to have a bigger influence in just Facebook operations, right? And I wanted to be a part of that. And so I thought to myself, it's like, what's the best way to, like, what's the worst thing that can happen? I end up, losing a couple $1,000s or whatever. So I decided to try it, man. I have a creative background as well. So I kind of worked out all the branding, taught myself how to set up the Shopify store. And, after that, it was just about driving traffic, right? You have everything there. And so, so I was able to drive traffic primarily with just social, like okay. Twitter specifically, nice. Just posting stuff on Twitter, partnered with a guy who had a lot of social accounts on Twitter. And at the time, the impressions, it was crazy. The algorithm was a lot more favorable back then, where you can place an ad and you get tons of impressions. So we used that to basically feed data to the Facebook pixel. And
Yep.
so once we picked all those people, then we started creating lookalike audiences, and then kind of started gradually, like, then, from Twitter, going into Facebook, and that's how we were able to scale rapidly. So within the first month, $25,000 in sales, second month, 49,000, third month, 74, and month 4, 116.
Wow.
So,
Nice.
it was like 4 months or so, right? That to break that 6-figure mark, which, a lot of people listening right now, they might just be getting started, and maybe you're starting at 0. I mean, I went from 0 to 25 in 1 month, right? And then you might have some people that are kind of like trying to break that 6-figure mark. These strategies that I'm going to share could very much layer on to what you're doing, or get you started either way. So it's been, it's needless to say, I mean, it was a thrill, man. I mean, it's super exciting to just be a part of it. I mean, especially when you're just like, oh, my first $1,000 day, and my first, $10,000 days. And those are memories that I'll shares for a lifetime. But, I love to share some of these strategies, if you don't mind.
Sure, man. Yeah. Dive in. I have some questions, but go ahead and dive in. And
Go for it.
Yeah. Well, I'm just curious because, like, I mean, you don't have to share the product, obviously, but like, that's a challenge that I think some people obviously have when they first get started. What are some strategies or processes, or even just thoughts that went into you figuring out what you were going to sell in your store?
So I was certainly not passionate about what I was selling. A lot of people will start there. It's like, oh, find something that you're passionate about, and like, that wasn't me, man. I was just trying to crack the code of all this stuff and make sense of it all. And I, ultimately my time is valuable, right? I was like, I wasn't like, I didn't have many commitments outside of work, right? But like, it still required a lot of work, a lot of, tenacity and consistency. But, for me, it was just about opportunity, right? So I was, if you're starting an e-commerce, you're probably doing just a drop shipping model, which is what I did. And so I did some research to try to find out what others were doing that I could learn from. Instead of just trying to like make this one product a big seller, I was just looking out in the market, what was selling in other marketplaces that the audience that I had already built on Twitter could potentially buy. So like my audience was just like females, right? Like 18 to 24 primarily, even up to like 34 years old. And so it's like, what does that audience like buy, right? Like, what would they buy? So that's kind of how I narrowed it down to like cosmetics, like beauty products. But then, finding specifically the products is just like going into other marketplaces like AliExpress. It's what I used. Like, what are the best sellers there? Because other people are drop shipping those products. That's the reason why, they're highly reviewed, or they're just selling in other markets. So like, a lot of people think that like there isn't enough share of the pie, like if they do that, but I proved the contrary, because it's like you're selling different products, and the question is like, well, this product is being sold for like, $450 with shipping on AliExpress. Why is it that somebody else would pay $20 in my shop? And the reality is you're marketing to different people. Like it's all about timing and getting the right message in front of the right people. And if they're the ones that decide how much they're willing to pay, right? Like I did some iterations of like, what is the price point that people kind of ultimately feel comfortable with? And my best selling product, I purchased for $450, $5 with shipping directly from the manufacturer in China. And then I was selling it for $14.99, which was my sweet spot. But then I was charging an extra $3 if it was domestic for shipping, and then $5 if it was international, right? And I tweaked my pricing point in terms of shipping, but I figured out that like $2.95 was a sweet spot for for shipping domestically, and $4.95 was the sweet spot for shipping internationally. And then even if you're international, that kept the price point below $20. And with taxes,
and that's an impulse buy
a
price.
little bit over. Yeah, it's an exactly. So that brings a great point, because it's one of those things that, like, it's a product. But first of all, I was driving all my traffic by a 30-second video. So my criteria is that, like, if I can't show the value of the product in a 30-second video, I ought to not try to go after cold audiences, because those are the clear winners, right? So 90% of your inventory on your store is just going to be fluff, right? Like that stuff is just kind of like filler. It's just like virtually to make you look bigger than you actually are. And this is extremely valuable for the people that are just starting, right? If you're doing under 7 figures a year, I think this is going to absolutely apply to you. And even if you're not, honestly, but let's say 10% of your inventory are the best sellers, right? Those are actually your front-end offers. Front-end offers are the ones that you promote, right? Mm-hmm. And once you get people to buy with that front-end offer, which ideally, with different audiences, different price points are going to work. I figured that with my audience, females 18 to 34, I could present a cold ad to somebody. If in 30 seconds in, they would click for a purchase. If it was under that price point of $20, right?
Absolutely.
Once I've collected that first payment, what happened after was very powerful, right? And so that's the number one strategy that I want to share. Is like product funnels. And so at the time, it was brand new. Like, a lot of people weren't doing it. One-Click Upsells, the app that I utilized, Ezra Firestone is the guy behind it, by Signify Apps. And so, a lot of people was like, well, how is it that you can pay for ads? Pay $5 for fulfillment, the product and fulfillment, pay for ads, and you're still making $20 and some change, right?
Yeah, right.
How is it that you can consistently continue to pay traffic and build a system that's predictable to further increase your sales, right? And still make some profit, and to be able to unlock that, you need product funnels. And so product funnels allow you to basically increase your average cart value, your average spend per customer. So, as opposed to like the average spend being $20, you layer on all these products that's going to dramatically increase your value. So the sequence that I personally used, so basically it's all post-purchase, right? So you buy that first product, it was like $20 plus taxes. And then after you've purchased, like, you give me payment information or file. Like, a lot of people focused at the time at having like pop-ups and like all these different cart offers and all that stuff. And I'm like, I just want to collect payment. And this is what Ezra was preaching at the time. It's like, you need to get that first commitment, the cart on file. And it doesn't matter how how big the purchase is. So that's what the whole concept of One-Click Upsell is. You get that first payment, and then after that, you present the first upsell one. So if they buy upsell one, well, upsell one is going to be of higher value than the product that they just purchased all the time. Yeah. So if they purchase a $20 product, maybe that second offer is like $35, right? It always goes up. That's why it's an upsell. If they buy upsell one, then you show them upsell two. Upsell two is going to be of greater value than upsell one. And if they buy upsell two, you still show them downsell one, right? So if they buy downsell one, right, then you go to the thank you page, and then on the thank you page, you're still presenting yet another offer. Yep. So if they buy that, or if they don't buy, they still go to the confirmation page thereafter. So obviously in a perfect world, that's a journey, right? They end up spending, $150 at the end of the day or something amazing. Not a lot of people take that journey. And so a lot of people listening to this might be asking us, like, what happens if they don't buy? So this is what happens. Like, the post-purchase happens, right? You present upsell one. If they don't buy upsell one, well, they go to downsell one. right? So you like if they're not purchasing, they purchase a $20 offer, you present a $40 offer as the upsell one. They don't buy that, then you present a downsell offer to the original purchase. So maybe the downsell is like $10, right? If your first purchase is $20, and so if they don't buy that, then you take them to thank you page where you can present yet another offer. And so the idea is that we talked about the 10%, right? The 10% of being your best sellers.
Mm-hmm.
So guess what what I'm presenting? I'm not just presenting best sellers, but I'm also presenting sellers that like are directly or indirectly items that the same buyer would buy. So for example, if you're selling, for instance, if you're selling a set of lipsticks, lip pencils, for instance, for $15 plus shipping, $20, then that first upsell could be a set of brushes.
Okay.
So obviously, I mean, it's makeup, right? It goes on the face.
Right.
Now that's kind of like more directly tied into what somebody would buy. But here's another one. Upsell 2 could be a teeth whitening kit. So again, it's
beauty.
It's correlated with beauty. It's correlated with confidence, and maybe that price point is like $100. Maybe that's your upsell too, right? So, first purchase is $20. Upsell 1 could be a set of brushes. Maybe that's $30, right? And then maybe it's a little bit more. Let's say double down, $40, and then your teeth whitening kit is $80 to $100.
Yeah.
So kind of using that, and then like all your 10%, like your 10% of best-selling products are always going to be in product funnels, right? And so based on what they add first to the cart, that's the funnel that they're going to go down by. So all the
I love everything I'm hearing here.
To serve the same buyers, and then that's how you're going to be able to drive kind of average spend per customer, which then allows you to pay more to acquire a customer. Right. Because once they're in the system, it's like you have all these other places where you can obviously remarket to them and kind of get more revenue on the back end.
Yeah. Everything you're talking about is extremely, effective and just smart and fundamental, because you do want to maximize average order value and customer lifetime value. Few questions for you. So price point wise, if you wouldn't mind, can you share what your value ladder was, the product funnel in regards to the price point as people moved up in the upsells and the downsells, and what that was, so this way the audience can get a feel for what is a good like price ascension strategy to follow?
Yeah, absolutely. And for me personally, I mean, it took a lot of testing to be able to unlock that. So ultimately, I recommend people just test. It's the thing is there's something called like perceived value versus actual value. When you have the beauty of one-click upsell is that you can tie in your actual product pages, right? That they could have visited. They see the actual, like if they hop out of your website and they see the actual value of the product when I mean the actual value is like the listing price, right?
Yep.
And then they see the discounted associated with that.
Nice.
And that is powerful. Yep. So you're basically making it seem that like you're dropping like insane discounts. Like I'm talking about like 50%, even like 70%. So maybe you have a product that's like already in the regular like listed price is already discounted like 20%. You take an extra 50% out of that 20% and make it 70%.
Yep.
Does that make sense? So like the perception of that is like huge. It's like, oh, it's an irresistible offer, right? So for instance, that funnel with the lip pencils, like it was $14.99 for the product. It was either $18 or $20 depending on the shipping, and then the second offer was actually 3 sets of the same thing, and it was like $30.
Yep, gotcha.
So. Gotcha. If they bought that, my average cart value would be $45 to $50.
Yep.
And then the upsell 2 was teeth whitening.
Nice.
So that was that was like $60, right? So
yep.
And then the downsell was was a $10 product. It was like a tweezer or something. Again, like related to
either way,
beauty, but it was like a blackhead tweezer or something like that. And
and it keeps people in that buying heat of clicking. Yes, I'll take that. Yes, I'll take that. You know, that $10 is nothing at that point. It's like, okay, sure. You know, I mean, whether they spent 15 and they see the downsell, or whether they spent more, you know, because of the 2 upsells, and then they see that. Yeah, that's awesome.
So first purchase was $18, $20. Second upsell was 35. Then third upsell was 60, and then the downsell was $10.
Okay. Nice.
And so, you know, obviously you kind of tie in. It's like, it's, you know, it's free shipping, right? Like, so you're not paying more for shit. Like, you're ordering more, but you're not paying more for shipping. And so,
because it's all rolled into the offer. That's how you position it.
Yep. It's part of the irresistible offer as well. So
that's awesome. And I love the strategy and the process and the intelligence behind the follow-up too, because if someone didn't take those upsells, I love how you took people into, you know, the upsell 1. If they don't purchase that, then you take them to like downsell 1, I believe is what you said.
Yep.
And it's all done through follow-up. And did you just drive them back to the store, or did you drive them to like a sales page from Zipify?
So it's all sales pages. Yeah. That's the beauty. I mean, it's like, you see the product, right? Like, you see it's a landing page. They can't go anywhere else. The only thing they can do is add to cart, which is automatically going to charge them. It's going to come up on the back end as a different transaction, but it's still part. That's on your payment gateway, but it's still part of the same order, right?
Gotcha.
So the way the order is produced is not going to produce a different order. But they can either click add to cart, which will basically authorize a different transaction on the back end, or they can click no thanks, I don't want to take part. You know, I don't want this incredibly ridiculous offer, like something along those lines. It's like, no thank you, I don't want to take advantage of this insane offer.
That's awesome,
and when they click that, they go to the next step, right? So it's like either way, you know, they're looking for the confirmation, right? Like, they're looking for the tracking number, looking for some sort of confirmation page. And so they kind of just gradually just going down that path, you know, and it's pretty powerful, man.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Did you do you have any tips as far as like the sales pages, you know, the structure, or even the messaging, like how you created the messaging? I don't know if you did it or you had a copywriter, you know, could you share maybe some intel in regards to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, at the top of the fold, I always had a video. And again, it's a 30-second video. Like, in e-commerce, like, I always simplify things. And my strategy was always that. It's like, if I can't showcase the benefit of the product, and it's literally, you know, like showcasing it. It's like not talking. You have a soundtrack, right? It's 30-second cut. It's clean, and that's it. So I would literally just embed the video via Vimeo, and it's all integrated with one-click upsell. And then I would have my sales letter right on the bottom. So after the video, there's a button. This is kind of like, that's the beauty of one-click upsell, is that like the template is there, right? You just have to fill in the blanks. So it was the video at top, add to cart at the bottom, like right below it, the call to action. And then you have kind of like your mini sales letter, which is basically the product description, right? But like, you want to kind of be more direct response, like type, like more direct, right? And really be able to showcase the benefits of it. And we're talking about like 150 to 250 words, right? Like, it doesn't have to be like super long. And then you would add the images, right? If you have some images, which I recommend you do. And then at the bottom, it's going to be the add to cart. And then below, only below the second button on the bottom of the page, then you can see the no thank you, like, which is like, it's a lot smaller, and it's typed out as opposed to being a big button that draws attention.
Smart.
And so as far as the coloring and design, I mean, like, the design is taken care of by one-click upsell. The colors, I mean, I just used whatever was associated with my brand, which the calls to action were yellow, but you know, they don't allow you a lot of customization, which is great, because you want bright buttons around like white backgrounds, right? Like, for me, it was yellow. It's like, you want to be able to draw attention. And a lot of times, like, people that don't know like conversion optimization, they kind of get all caught up in like, oh, I want these specific images. I want these color backgrounds and these and this. And it's like, just
Call
keep
it
it
comes down to
simple,
testing.
stupid. You know what I mean? Like just
Yeah,
put
that too.
black
Yeah.
text against a white background and make
Right.
your buttons like bright. You know, if
Yep.
your brand is pink, like make your buttons pink, blue, you know, green
Yep.
or yellow, like whatever it is. Like you want to stay consistent because that kind of creates recall. Like the same color that people add to cart initially, that's the same button color people need to be at, like the click following up, right? Like they need subconsciously people associate it in that fashion.
Yeah.
And
No, I hear you, man. No, I mean, those are incredible tips, and you're right. You don't want to overthink it. You want to keep it very simple. White actually has been tested for years as being the best background color on a sales page, which is funny that you mentioned that. What about, so I know you use a drop shipping model. So did you ever bring the supply chain in-house and, have a warehouse and handle fulfillment, or did you always depend on, AliExpress, and I'm assuming an integration with Shopify like Oberlo, where you were just handling, shipping, drop shipping from, wherever you were buying the product, which I'm assuming is probably China?
Yeah. So step one is utilizing Oberlo. Everything was literally just fulfilled through Oberlo. The second step to that is identifying suppliers so you can work with directly that could give you a better discount, and you can then just kind of spit out a CSV file to them, and they would fulfill the orders. I partnered with one that would literally, I'd create an agent account on the Shopify platform, and that person would come on the back end and fulfill the orders for me.
Nice.
So I was just spitting like, I wasn't even.
They would go into your Shopify store, like, yeah.
I would just give them restricted access, right? And like they actually had their own app that was exclusive to the people that they were working with, right? Supplying to. And so they did all the tracking, right? It was just tied into Shopify. The person just came in. Like I didn't have to do any exports, nothing. It was all through, it was all done and managed through them, right? Which is huge in order, to scale, especially as a one-man team. And so then the next step after that is like, okay, you've identified products that you can easily source in a third party, even without having supplier relationships, you can source easily, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the second step is like, okay, run ads. Now you've proven that you have a good seller. Like for me, like, and I've kind of like benchmarked this myself. Like for me, a best seller is like if I was able to push like 50 to 100, but depending on the price point, 50 to 100 units a day.
Yep.
And like when I first took the leap, it was like 100 units a day.
Yeah.
So once I started selling 100 units a day consistently, now like suppliers are starting to take attention, it's like, oh, okay, this guy, seriously, he's delivering on the promise. Like he was asking for a drop in price, but making all these promises, but it's like, they've heard that pitch 1,000 times, right? They're not going to take you seriously until you actually,
unless you show volume. Yeah.
So once you show in volume, you kind of have all the leverage in the world, right? And so then I went to Alibaba, which is where you buy kind of wholesales. Like a lot of these AliExpress people, they're not even the supply, they're not even the manufacturers. They're kind of like the middleman. So the idea is to cut the middleman, cut them. They're selling in that marketplace. Technically, they're merchants, right? They're merchants selling to in a different marketplace to a different audience.
Yep.
So you would cut them and go to Alibaba straight and purchase wholesale, right? So that's when you're talking about, okay, well, if I'm pushing 100 units a day, I can make the bet that I can purchase 3,000 units up front because I can push that in a month, right? So like every month I'd be making a different order of 3,000 of this one seller, right? So like at least, so what happens is that, I do that. So I get my 3,000 units and now I start fulfilling from the US. So at least for that one seller, which by the way, that's my way to acquire new customers, right? Because like that's my front end offer. So all new customers are having that experience, right?
Yep.
And so because they have an incredible experience, at least with that one product in terms of fulfilling orders in a timely fashion, especially with the Amazon economy, right, being like 2-day shipping, then they're more likely to buy again, and that's what I personally saw. And so that's kind of like the second step after that, right? It's like buy wholesale, start shipping from in-house. It's the reason I moved to Arizona, and then think I met you a couple months after actually.
Yeah.
We're handling fulfillment here from Arizona.
Cool. Yeah. That's awesome, man. Well, I love hearing all this, and there's so much value that you're providing right now to the audience, especially if they're just getting started, in e-com, but even if they have already gotten started in e-com, but they haven't had that leap, that success, you're sharing some high level tips and techniques here when it comes to being able to scale a store with, making sure to maximize average order value with upsells and downsells, both right when someone makes a purchase and in the follow-up process, how to bring the supply chain in-house. One question I had a little while ago, actually, as I'm talking, I just had this question come back to me, which is good. When you were establishing relationships with drop shipping suppliers, through Alibaba, did you have like conversations with these people? Did you get on the phone with them and just really, see if they were like a good partner? I mean, how did that process look like?
WhatsApp, man.
Nice. Okay.
Here's the thing, honestly, all the communications happen through WhatsApp, first of all.
Yep.
Second of all is that like the smart merchants that are really paying attention, like if you're fulfilling items from the same supplier, I guarantee you they're going to reach out to you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because it's like they want to be able to, as opposed to like doing one kind of like line item at the same time, they want to receive everything in bulk, and they're the ones that are going to take the initiative to ascend that relationship.
Yep.
Now you can also do, like, that's how it was for me. Like they came to me because of the order volume. Mind you, I was like cracking the code in the process, right? I wasn't like being mentored, by somebody else or like any, which is just the power and beauty of e-commerce, right? It's like the barrier of entry is low. Anybody can do it. It just takes being resourceful, a lot of times. So if they don't reach out to you, you can reach out to them, right? Like you can literally DM through AliExpress and say, hey, is there a better way that we communicate? In fact, they love that because that means that the AliExpress is not going to take that percentage of the sale.
Yeah.
Right. So they want to work with you in a closer fashion. And the first thing that they're going to do is like, can we take this conversation up, elsewhere? Then that's WhatsApp, because they don't even want the conversation being logged on AliExpress. You know what I mean? So that was
awesome,
like
man.
the natural, ascension from that. And then just building a relationship at a smaller scale, right? It's like, some people might be skeptical. It's like, oh, well, there's a reason why you do it through AliExpress. They have like all these, they're the middleman, right? Like they protect you. They offer some sort of insurance and protection, but you got to be able to ascend and grow. You got to be able to like cut the middleman, and ultimately that's going to lead to a more satisfactory relationship between the supplier and yourself, because like they're making more money, right? They're making more money, and now you have a closer relationship with them. So you can always start at a small, like if you're really skeptic, you can always start at a smaller scale, where it's like, if it's your first order, like going outside of AliExpress, like start at a smaller scale, and kind of work from yourself from that. Like for me, like I was doing payments through like PayPal, for instance, to them directly. And I started at a smaller scale, right? Like, if they scam me, it's going to be for a couple $100 or whatever. But then it became thousands of dollars, right?
Yep.
But they fulfilled, and I bring value to them. Why would they drop me off? And so
you're creating win-wins,
And I did the same thing I did with AliExpress, is like with PayPal, because PayPal has a protection where you can always kind of like dispute it, right, and get your money back. And oftentimes they're gonna side with the merchant. And so after that, I actually applied for mass payments with PayPal, and so I was able to avoid the transaction fees because of that. A lot of you guys, some of you guys, especially if you're doing like influencer marketing, for instance, and you have a lot of payouts, right? Every single time you pay somebody, you're paying 2.9% plus 30 cents. So there's this feature by PayPal called mass payments, and with mass payments, you kind of pay like a flat fee. I think it maxes out at like a $10. So if you're doing like bigger payments, you're gonna end up spending a lot less money. So say whatever, if you're making a payment of $1,000 on 3%, you're going to pay like $30. So
Right.
I would pay $10 at the most. And all you have to do is upload that CSV file, just throw out that send out those payments like at scale. The downside to that is that you're not going to have like that, that buyer protection or whatever. But once the relationship is established, it's like, whatever. I was saving hundreds of dollars, and I'm trying to squeeze, my margins and get it, keep as much. It's not keep as much as I could. It's not about how much you make. It's about how much you get to keep.
Profit.
I mean, it's a profit, right? It's like that's what business is. So
incredible story, man. Incredible strategies, incredible techniques. And you were doing all this too while working full time, on top of that, which is awesome, and it's good that the audience is hearing all this because, I'm sure that there's people out there watching this that, are still working for quote unquote the man, and they're trying to break in, into entrepreneurship and building their own e-com businesses, and hearing your story is definitely going to inspire a lot of people.
I hope it does, man. I hope it does.
That's cool, man.
I got more too.
Oh, go ahead.
I got more too, but you tell me.
Well, I want to be respectful of your time. If you got something else you want to share, I've got a little time here. By all means, we can dive into it.
Okay. So product funnels was actually the first thing. The second thing is so leveraging Facebook Messenger. So at the time, we talked earlier about like just being an early adopter and how, being that person that's willing to like implement and execute fast has tremendous upside, right? So at the time, Facebook Messenger has Facebook had just released their API for Facebook Messenger. And so below the add to cart button, you can kind of have like the checkbox. It was by default checked, right? So every time somebody added something to cart, they would automatically get placed into my Facebook Messenger list through meaty chat. So Recart is a product that I used for basically cart abandonments through Facebook Messenger. So every time, and you can still do it. It's not gonna be checked by default. They have to check it. But every time somebody adds to cart, even if they don't purchase, it kind of triggers, like when they don't purchase, it triggers this cart abandonment sequence through Facebook Messenger. So my sequence was like 30 minutes after somebody added to cart, they haven't purchased, they get a Facebook Messenger message with basically it's just a cart abandonment message, no discounts. And then 4 hours into it, I would offer a 10% discount. And then 24 hours, I would offer a 15% discount. So it was basically like a discount ladder. And within 24 hours, I had an automated system on the back end that was hitting up people that abandoned cart 3 times a day. After they click add to cart. So, at that time, man, I mean, it was like, to get started, first of all, it was like $29 a month. It was ridiculously cheap. Open rates at that time were like insane, right? Because a lot of people weren't doing Facebook Messenger. So open rates were like 90-95%. Absolutely insane, right? When you compare that to email, being on average 20% open rates, response rate 6%. And now what was even more insane is that like the click-through rates were off the roof, right? It was like 40% click-through rates, and it was all built through RCS messaging, which is like the widget through, chatbot automation and whatnot. So I used meaty chat for that. And so the idea for the automation within Facebook Messenger, the idea that you could build a list like super, super fast by just like people that showed intent, right? It's not just like people that are entering giveaways. A lot of people do giveaways, sweepstakes, right? To grow their email list. But these are people that came to your store through an ad, organic, whatever the means have been, but they had high intent to actually make a purchase, but they didn't quite complete it, right? So being able to pick up on those purchases was huge. I mean, I was able to recover about 2%. Just around like 1.8% of revenue recovered. And this is kind of like after 4 months, I kind of like sat down. I was like, holy moly. I just exceeded my six-figure mark in a month. And I sat down and I drafted out my numbers, and I was like, started to be more nerdy and more strategic about it, and kind of like diving into data. And I come to find out 1.8 to 2% of revenue, right? Like I calculated by total sales in 4 months, and how much Facebook Messenger had brought in, right? And I had brought in like $264,000 in sales in 4 months, and so I brought in just about like 5,000 through recovered through Facebook Messenger. So it was like 1.82% recovery rate, which like $29 a month. It cost me $120 to recover like $5,000 in sales.
Yeah. Obviously, the ROI there is totally worth it.
Insane, right? And also the fact that, now you're building an asset, right? To remarket to those people. So I kept like kind of like sending out weekly campaigns, so that's less similar to email. Like email was doing nothing to, in comparison to like product funnels or Facebook Messenger for me in terms of like actually generating revenue. And I would bring in an extra like $1,000-$2,000 in sales by leveraging that data, right? And keep doing it every month. So it's like the ripple effect of that. It's an asset that you have and kind of you build upon. And so it was huge. I mean, I think ManyChat is still huge nowadays. Facebook, however, as you might know, it's kind of cracking down on that end. Typically what happens is that you get all these early adopters to get the best experience, right? Early adopters. So then comes everybody and starts utilizing mall practices, right? And with great power comes great responsibility. And people unfortunately abuse it. So Facebook is cracking down, man, as you know, and for the first iteration of that was like the box was no longer checked by default. So people actually had to check to be added as a subscriber. And now, as of recent, they made it so like you can only message people once in every 24 hours. And then, if the person hasn't engaged, you can't message them back. So they kind of like drop off your subscriber list, so to speak. So the businesses, I mean, that's a huge red flag, because you've invested a lot to grow a list that now it's essentially being taken away. And the smart marketers were trying to extend that relationship outside of Facebook Messenger, right, into their own ecosystems where they could control. A lot of which was email, right? But now, where the trend is going is SMS. I mean, you can see it even with ManyChat. I mean, they're literally encouraging all their users to merge their audiences from Facebook Messenger into SMS, because what happens is like now Facebook is in control. Facebook is placing all these limits. People are going to start churning, right? They're ManyChat users, and that affects directly their business. So they're saying like, okay, we're going to add all this SMS capabilities and just be adamant about transitioning your audiences to SMS. And, we talked about earlier how we're trying to solve that problem, and I say trying because we're in the process of building the Shopify integration. So it's not yet launched, but text messaging is what I wish I had back then, right? And that's kind of like my bonus point there is text messaging, because consumer attention is mobile. Like it's increasingly going to mobile. More than 50% of consumers prefer mobile as their preferred device to communicate, right? Like 78% of consumers wish they would text businesses. They could text businesses, right? Open rates, 98%. Like regulation has not been to the extent that they're cracking down on that. And then response rates, 45%. Like insane. Insane.
Oh, that's still early. Yeah. This is a good time to jump into that. Absolutely. And I would even say there's probably a huge opportunity. You can leverage, ManyChat, and I'm sure in the near future, you can leverage reply by for like probably SMS automation, cart abandonment possibly. So, so I'm excited. I'm excited to see like that roll out.
Exactly. And that's where we're going from, at least The most common use case that's it, right? Cart abandonment.
Low hanging fruit.
But also, also the power to unlock transactions through a simple text. I mean, I mentioned like nobody else has the technology. We have it. We've proven that consumers will actually purchase natively through the Messages app. Comes pre-installed in 4 billion plus devices, right?
Nice. Yep.
So the ability to like
huge
leverage a channel that's like it's already there, right? Like you talk to your friends and family via text, like it's already there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, for instance, what we're seeing right now, at least in the in the sports space, is like 2% conversion every time an offer goes out on average. Yep. I'm talking about like hundreds of customers, right? So like that's the average. The people that are doing a lot better, might be doing 5-6% conversion rate, but like say if you have a list of 10,000 people, so it's kind of like an email subscriber list, but it's a mobile subscriber list. You have 10,000 people. If every time you send an offer to those 10,000 people, it converts at 2%, you have 200 new customers.
I know.
I mean, like the email doesn't do that. And then now the power really isn't the average cart value, because some people might be thinking, oh, well, that's really doesn't amount to much money if the average purchase is like $20, right? Like we've described with the product funnels.
Yep.
We've seen that from all the data. So we've processed over 10 million transactions to date. And out of all that data, $116 is the average cart value. So the average transaction is $116. So if you take that times 10,000 people, 2% conversion rate, 200 buyers, 200 times 116, which is your average spend, that's $23,200 in added revenue from one campaign. And the beauty of it is that those sales come within 30 minutes or less.
Right.
like what I mean? It's just like leveraging like scarcity, urgency, right? Like limited inventory, placing timelines. It's huge.
Smart.
We've seen customers generate $50,000 in sales within 30 minutes. So very powerful stuff, man. And obviously having the background in the e-commerce world, I'm super, super eager and excited to bring that to the e-commerce world, and obviously being tied into Shopify, handling all the order tracking, reporting.
I'm excited. I'm excited for you guys are gonna have a ton of success with this. I'm excited to see what happens.
It's super exciting, man.
Yeah. Well, when you become big time, remember the small guys.
Absolutely, man. In fact, I would love to place this in the hands of some of your clients as well, because I know.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking about that as you're talking about it, because we have some massive lists, with our clients, that this could be super powerful for them. So we'll definitely talk offline after this. I do have to. My time is getting short here, so we do have to kind of roll into the bonus round here. But this has been amazing, though. And I wish I had more and more time, but unfortunately, I do have to. Get to a next commitment here, but let's go into the bonus round. So this bonus round is a fun little thing we do on the Ecom Performance Marketing Show.
Okay.
I ask you a few questions, and you have to answer each question with just one word.
Ooh, it's gonna be tough, man. Okay,
everybody says that, but then nobody has like a super hard time with it. There's maybe like a question or two out of these four of them and ask that people have a little bit of a hard time with, but everybody says that. So
I'll try my best.
Okay. So what caused your biggest e-com success to date?
One word. I'm going to have to say execution.
Love it. Okay. And what advice do you have for other e-com owners?
Adapt.
Nice. I love it. Yep. And we were talking a lot about that too. I'm glad you said that, because, with Facebook Messenger and some of the policy changes, and then the SMS trend, I'm glad you said that. How would you describe yourself?
Resilient.
Okay, awesome. And then what do you see in your future?
Abundance.
I see that too.
Right.
Yep. Awesome, man. Well, hey, This has been awesome. This has been an awesome interview, awesome, episode. How can the audience reach out to you, follow you, get to know you, maybe even become customers with Reply By in the near future, especially with, what's happening on the Shopify front? How can someone do that?
Yeah, so the best way to connect with me personally is through LinkedIn. I'm the most active there. So linkedin.com/I am Josue Sanchez. Pretty straightforward there. And then as far as connecting with what I'm doing right now, Reply By, I know a lot of people listening are obviously e-commerce owners. So building an early adopter list right now, kind of like on a waiting list. So the best way to do that is to text ecom to 20123.
Ooh.
Text
ecom to 20123.
20123. Text ecom to 20123. So when you do, you're going to receive an auto response with a link with more details.
Ooh, guys, do it right now because Josue is right. Right now is the time to jump into SMS marketing while it's early before marketers ruin it, which is probably going to happen, but it'll be a few years.
It's bound to happen.
Yeah, I know. So do it now so this way you can leverage it and you can create more opportunities and more results in your business. They've got an incredible, platform with a lot of amazing features and capabilities coming out in the very near future. So you definitely need to do that right now. Can you say that one more time, Josue?
Yeah, text ecom to 20123.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Incredible episode. And I'm very, very thankful that you, jumped on here. So thank you so much for being a part of the show. And guys, definitely, follow Josue and also make sure to text that keyword to that number right now if you haven't already.
Thank you, Josh. Pleasure having me.
Thank you for tuning into the e-commerce performance marketing show. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment with a timestamp of your favorite part and share it with a friend. Until our next episode, here's to you and the success of your e-commerce business.